I thought it was just me, but it isn't. Making the journey from what will people think to I am enough by BrenA Brown. Introduction. There's a story about a young woman named Susan. She was a physical therapist, brilliant at her job, but for the past year, she'd been at home with her new baby daughter. She loved being a mom, but the family finances were getting tight, so she decided to look for a part-time job. And then, the perfect opportunity landed in her lap. A great part-time position opened up, and even better, her church had an opening in their daycare program. It felt like the universe was aligning. Ecstatic, she picked up the phone to call the one person she wanted to share her good news with, her older sister. But instead of the celebration she expected, there was a cold silence on the other end of the line. Then her sister's voice cut through. "I'm not sure why you even had a child," she said, "if you're not interested in raising her." Susan said it felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. She could hardly breathe. The joy vanished, replaced by a single, crushing thought: I'm a bad mother. By that evening, she was ready to turn down the job. That feeling, that hot, sickening wave of wrongness that washes over you. It has a name. It's one of the most powerful and least understood emotions we ever experience. And it's the subject of one of the most important books of our time, I Thought It Was Just Me, by the incredible researcher and storyteller, BrenA Brown. This isn't just another self-help book. It's a map. A guide out of the darkness that so many of us find ourselves in. A darkness where we feel isolated, flawed, and unworthy. BrenA Brown spent over 6 years and interviewed hundreds of women to uncover the mechanics of this silent epidemic, this force that quietly dictates how we live, how we love, and how we see ourselves. The book has become a global phenomenon, not because it offers easy answers, but because it gives us a language for a pain we've all felt but never knew how to name. By the end of our time together today, you will understand the secret anatomy of shame, what it is, how it works, and why it holds so much power over us. But more importantly, you will learn the 4 powerful elements of what BrenA calls shame resilience. This isn't about becoming immune to shame. That's impossible. This is about learning how to feel it, move through it, and come out on the other side stronger, more courageous, and more connected to the people who matter. This is the journey from asking, "What will people think?" to knowing, deep in your bones, I am enough. So, let's begin. Book summary. Have you ever had a moment where you just wanted the floor to open up and swallow you whole? A moment where you felt so exposed, so flawed, that you would have done anything to become invisible? Maybe it was saying the wrong thing in class and hearing your classmates snicker. Maybe it was being picked last for a team. Or maybe it was a quiet, cutting comment from someone you love, like the one Susan's sister made. That feeling is shame. And according to BrenA Brown's groundbreaking research, it is an absolutely universal human emotion. We all experience it. But here's the problem: nobody wants to talk about it. In fact, just talking about shame can make us feel shame. And this silence is precisely what gives shame its power. It's a silent epidemic, an invisible force that thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment. BrenA Brown, in her years of research, wanted to give us a shared vocabulary, a way to finally turn on the lights and see this thing for what it is. And the definition she landed on is simple, but profound. Shame, she says, is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and therefore unworthy of acceptance and belonging. Let that sink in for a moment. It's not just about feeling bad. It's about believing that we are bad. This is the crucial difference between shame and its close cousin, guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. If you cheat on a test, guilt is the feeling that says, that was a stupid thing to do. It's not who I want to be. Guilt can actually be a healthy force. It can lead us to apologize, to make amends, to change our behavior. It's a moral compass. Shame, on the other hand, doesn't focus on the action. It focuses on the self. If you feel shame for cheating, the voice in your head says, "I'm a cheater. I'm a fraud. I'm a bad person." And when you start believing that you are the mistake, you're far more likely to make that mistake again. Shame doesn't lead to positive change, it leads to paralysis, or worse, to more destructive behavior. It's also different from embarrassment. Embarrassment is fleeting, and often funny later. If you trip in the hallway, you feel embarrassed, but you know it happens to everyone. Humiliation is when you feel you've been treated unfairly, that you didn't deserve the treatment you got. But shame feels deserved. It's a prison you believe you belong in. One woman in the study described it perfectly. Shame is like a prison. But a prison that you deserve to be in because something's wrong with you. So where does this feeling come from? We aren't born with it. We aren't born believing we need to have a perfect body, or afraid to tell our stories, or worried about getting old. These ideas come from outside of us. BrenA Brown introduces a powerful metaphor to explain this: the shame web. Imagine a spider's web. On the outside edges are words: who you should be, what you should be, how you should be. These are the social and community expectations that are constantly being thrown at us. They come from everywhere: the media, magazines, movies, our teachers, our colleagues, our friends, and, most powerfully, our families. These expectations are often layered, conflicting, and completely impossible to meet. For women, the book explains, these expectations are especially tangled. Be thin, but don't look like you're obsessed with your weight. Be successful, but don't be too aggressive or neglect your family. Be a perfect mother, but make it look effortless. Be yourself, as long as yourself is young, beautiful, and agreeable. It's what writer Marilyn Frye calls a double bind, a situation where all of your options expose you to penalty or judgment. No matter what you do, you're caught. And when we get caught in this web, we feel three things flood over us: fear, blame, and disconnection. The fear is the fear of disconnection itself. We are biologically wired for connection. As infants, we need it to survive. As we grow, we need it to thrive. Shame is the fear that something we've done, or something we are, has made us unworthy of that connection. It's the fear of being cast out. Then comes blame. When we feel that intense pain of shame, we have to discharge it somewhere. Sometimes we turn it inward. It's my fault. I'm stupid. I'm not good enough. We implode. Other times, we explode, lashing out at the people around us: our parents, our friends, the person who accidentally bumped into us. It's your fault, we scream, trying to hurl the pain away from ourselves. And finally, there is disconnection. When we're in shame, we feel utterly alone, exposed, and deeply flawed. We hide. We keep secrets. We silence ourselves. We withdraw from the very people we need the most, because we're terrified that if they saw the real, imperfect us, they would turn away in disgust. This is the trap. Shame tells you that you are alone, and its very nature makes you isolate yourself, which only proves the feeling right. It's a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. So, how do we get out? If shame traps us in a web of fear, blame, and disconnection, what is the way out? The answer is the heart of this entire book. It's a single, powerful force that shame cannot survive in the presence of. That force is empathy. Brene uses a brilliant analogy. Imagine a petri dish. If you put shame in that dish and cover it with secrecy, silence, and judgment, it will grow exponentially. It will consume everything. But if you take that same petri dish of shame and douse it with empathy, shame starts to wither. It can't survive. Empathy creates a hostile environment for shame. It is the antidote. When we share our story with someone who responds with empathy, the painful belief that we are alone is shattered. Hearing someone say, "I've been there too," or "That sounds so hard, I understand," is like a healing balm. It tells us we are not broken. We are not alone. We are still worthy of connection. But real empathy isn't easy. It's often confused with sympathy, but they are worlds apart. Sympathy is feeling for someone. It creates separation. When you offer sympathy, you're standing on the shore, looking down at someone who has fallen into a pit, and saying, "Oh man, that looks terrible down there. So sorry for you." It's a look of pity from a distance. Empathy, on the other hand, is feeling with someone. It's climbing down into the pit with them, looking them in the eye, and saying, "I know what it's like down here. And you are not alone." Empathy is about connection. BrenA Brown tells a fantastic story about this. It was an impossibly busy weekend for her. Her daughter was in her first ballet recital. It was graduation weekend at the university where she taught, and it was Mother's Day, with family coming in from out of town. On top of all that, she had signed up to bring cookies for her daughter's teacher appreciation party. In the chaos, she forgot the cookies. When she arrived to pick up her daughter, she saw her name on the sign-up sheet and panicked. She tried to sneak in and out, but ran right into the teacher. Trying to cover, she went into what she calls liar mode, pretending her husband must have dropped them off, even pointing to a random plate of cookies and saying, "Oh, there they are." She got to the car, and the shame just hit her. She started sobbing. It wasn't just that she forgot the cookies, or that she had lied. It was the crushing feeling of being a failure, a bad working mom. She called her friend Dawn. Through her tears, she confessed what she'd done. Dawn could have laughed. She could have said, "Don't worry about it, it's just cookies." That would have been sympathy. But that's not what Dawn did. She listened. Then she said, "Look, you're doing the best you can. You have an impossible weekend ahead of you. You're just trying to hold it together, and you don't want Ellen's teacher to think you don't appreciate her." In that moment, Brene says, the shame started to fade. Dawn didn't fix the problem. She didn't make the lie okay. She simply connected with the feeling behind it. She climbed down into the pit. That small act of empathy moved Brene from "I'm a terrible mother" to "I'm an overwhelmed mother who did a stupid thing." The difference is everything. That ability to move through shame without it defining you is what Brene calls shame resilience. It's not about being bulletproof, it's about having the tools to get back up after you've been knocked down. And through her research, she found that women with high levels of shame resilience all had 4 things in common. These are the 4 essential elements for building our own resilience. The first element is recognizing shame and understanding our triggers. You can't fight an enemy you can't see. The first step is to become aware of what shame feels like for you. For many people, it's a physical reaction. A hot flush in your face, a tightness in your stomach, a dry mouth. When you can recognize that physical cue, you can say to yourself, "Ah, this is shame. I know this feeling." That tiny bit of awareness creates a space between the feeling and your reaction. The next part is understanding your triggers. What specific situations or topics make you vulnerable to shame? Brene calls these our unwanted identities. These are the labels we are desperate to avoid. For example, in the area of speaking out, you might not want to be perceived as a loudmouth or pushy. In the area of work, you might fear being seen as incompetent or a fraud. These unwanted identities are often rooted in messages we received growing up in our families. One woman in the book, Sylvia, was put on the losers list at her work after making a mistake. This sent her into a spiral of shame. It wasn't until she talked with her sister that she remembered her father's constant refrain from their childhood: "No one likes a loser." That was her trigger. Once she understood the source, she could see the situation for what it was: a toxic work environment playing on her deepest fears, and she could start to heal and make a plan to leave. Understanding your triggers isn't about making you weaker. It's the opposite. Acknowledging your vulnerabilities is a source of profound strength. It's like knowing where the thin ice is on a frozen lake. You don't avoid the lake, you just walk with more awareness. The second element is practicing critical awareness. Shame wants you to believe that the problem is you. It zooms the camera lens in so tight that all you can see is your own flawed self, alone and struggling. Critical awareness is the act of zooming that camera out. When you zoom out, you start to see the bigger picture. You realize you're not the only one struggling with this. You see the social and cultural forces at play, the impossible expectations we talked about in the shame web. Let's take body image, an issue that over 90% of the women in the study struggled with. When you're feeling shame about your body, you think, "Something is wrong with me." But when you practice critical awareness, you zoom out and ask the big picture questions. What are the societal expectations around appearance? To be young, thin, and perfect. Who benefits from these expectations? The diet industry, the cosmetic industry, the fashion industry, a multi-billion-dollar machine that profits from our self-doubt. How realistic are these expectations? The current media ideal is achievable by less than 5% of the female population. When you see that, you realize it's not a personal failing, it's a cultural setup. You move from individualizing the problem, "I am the only one," to contextualizing it, "I see the big picture." You move from pathologizing yourself, "Something is wrong with me," to normalizing your experience, "I'm not alone in this." This doesn't excuse personal responsibility, but it does stop you from blaming yourself for failing to meet an impossible standard. It gives you your power back. The third element is reaching out. This is perhaps the most courageous and powerful act of resilience. Shame heals between people. When we find the courage to share our story with someone in our connection network, someone who has earned the right to hear it, we give empathy a chance to work its magic. Brene tells one of the most moving stories in the book about two neighbors, Jennifer and Tiffany. For a long time, their friendship was very surface level. Jennifer felt Tiffany was a bit superficial and judgmental. One day, Jennifer's sister, Carly, who struggled with alcoholism, entered rehab. Jennifer needed someone to watch her son overnight so she could attend a family weekend at the center. She reluctantly asked Tiffany. Tiffany's reaction was a barrage of clueless questions. "Carly? She doesn't look like an alcoholic," she said. "She's so cute." Tiffany just couldn't reconcile the reality of addiction with her neat, perfect image of the world. It was a painful, disconnecting conversation. Months later, another incident happened. A mother was found passed out drunk in the school carpool line. Tiffany ran to Jennifer's house, horrified that such a thing could happen in their neighborhood, at their school. But Jennifer, whose own family had been touched by addiction, felt a pang of empathy for the woman. She tried to explain this to Tiffany, but Tiffany didn't get it. The gap between them grew wider. The turning point came when they were at a school meeting and sat down with a group of perfect PTA moms. Jennifer, in a moment of what she called ordinary courage, decided to be authentic. When asked about her holiday plans, she openly shared that she was going to visit her sister who had just gotten out of rehab. Tiffany was mortified, even trying to shush Jennifer. "I doubt she wants the details of your complicated family," she hissed. But the head of the PTA, a woman named Amber whom Tiffany idolized, didn't flinch. She leaned in and asked with genuine concern, "So, how's your sister doing?" It turned out Amber's own family was full of complications, including addiction and divorce. In that moment, Jennifer found connection where she least expected it. But the story doesn't end there. Months later, Tiffany called Jennifer, sobbing. Jennifer ran over to find her neighbor collapsed on the kitchen floor. And then, the truth came out. Tiffany's perfect world was a carefully constructed facade. She confessed that she had never even met her father. That she was so ashamed of her poor mother, who was missing teeth, that she didn't even invite her to her own wedding. She had spent her entire life running from her own shame, and in the process, had built a wall of judgment around herself that kept everyone out. "I want to be normal," she cried to Jennifer. "But I'm exhausted." In that moment of shared vulnerability, a real friendship was finally born. Tiffany had reached out. Jennifer had listened with compassion. They had built a bridge of empathy across the chasm of judgment. This is the power of reaching out. It reminds us that we are all those people. We are all one crisis, one divorce, one diagnosis away from being the person we might otherwise judge. When we reach out, we break down the illusion of us and them and find the shared humanity that connects us all. And the fourth element is speaking shame. This is about developing a language to talk about what we're feeling and ask for what we need. When we're in shame, we often can't find the words. We just freak out or lose it. Speaking shame is about being able to say, "When you said that, it made me feel underscore, and what I need from you right now is underscore." For example, remember Susan, whose sister shamed her for wanting to work. Instead of just accepting that shame, she could have learned to say, "When you question my commitment to my daughter, it is incredibly hurtful and shaming. I'm trying to make the best decision for my family, and I need your support, not your judgment." It's not about attacking back. It's about expressing your own feelings from a place of authenticity. It's about translating the raw pain into a language that allows for connection and understanding. This is especially powerful when dealing with what Brene calls unintentional shame, when people, often with good intentions, say things that are deeply shaming. Think of someone struggling with infertility who is told, "You should just relax," or "Have you thought about adopting?" While the person saying it might be trying to help, the impact is invalidating. The book shares a beautiful guide written for friends and family of those struggling with infertility. It's a masterclass in speaking shame. It doesn't just list the painful feelings, it clearly states what is helpful and what is not. It says things like, "I need you to be a listener, and please don't tell me of all the worst things that have happened to others." It's a brave and authentic way to ask for real empathy. These four elements, recognizing triggers, practicing critical awareness, reaching out, and speaking shame, are not a four-step program. They are a practice. A lifelong commitment to living with more courage, compassion, and connection. And what happens when we practice these things? We start to move away from the culture of blame and fear, and toward what Brene calls a culture of connection. We stop chasing perfection and start embracing growth. We stop worrying about being cool or ordinary and start celebrating our authentic selves. We begin to understand that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of courage, creativity, and connection. It's the willingness to show up and be seen when you have no control over the outcome. And it is the only path to a wholehearted life. Shame tells us a story, that we are flawed, that we are not enough, and that we are alone. But BrenA Brown's work gives us a new story to tell. It's a story that says our imperfections are not inadequacies, they are reminders that we're all in this together. It's a story where vulnerability is our greatest strength, and where reaching out for connection is the bravest thing we can do. It's a story that starts with the thought, "It must be just me," and ends with the powerful, liberating truth, It's not just you. You are not alone. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through I Thought It Was Just Me, it's hard not to feel the weight and the importance of this work. What BrenA Brown has done is more than just research. She has given a voice to a universal human experience that has thrived in silence for generations. She's demystified the very emotion that tells us we are too flawed to be understood. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the profound shift from seeing shame as a personal, moral failing to understanding it as a social, cultural phenomenon. We don't feel shame in a vacuum. We feel it between people. And therefore, it can only be healed between people. This idea is both simple and revolutionary. It tells us that the solution to our deepest feelings of isolation isn't to fix ourselves in private, it's to find the courage to connect with others in public. In a world that seems to be getting more and more polarized, where blame and judgment are the languages of the day, this message of empathy feels more urgent than ever. The book reminds us that compassion isn't a virtue, it's a commitment. It's the choice to lean into discomfort, to sit with someone in their pain without trying to fix it or dismiss it. It's the willingness to say, I'm here with you. So, how can we start to apply these ideas in our own lives, right now? Here are a few simple, practical actions you can take today. First, start practicing the language. The next time you feel that hot flush of I'm not good enough, just name it. Say to yourself, this is shame. That small act of recognition is the first step in taking back your power. It separates you from the feeling, just enough to give you a moment to breathe. Second, practice zooming out. The next time you feel shame about something, whether it's your grades, your appearance, or a mistake you made, ask yourself the critical awareness questions. Who benefits from me feeling this way? How realistic is the expectation I'm trying to meet? You'll start to see that many of your personal struggles are actually shared, cultural pressures. This transforms the feeling from what's wrong with me to what's wrong with this picture. And third, and this is the bravest one, identify one person in your life who has earned the right to hear your story. One person with whom you can be vulnerable. You don't have to share your deepest secret. Start small. The next time you have a tough day, instead of just saying I'm fine, try reaching out and saying, I had a really hard day today, and I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. See what happens when you let someone in. Connection is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. We've covered the core ideas of I Thought It Was Just Me today, but a summary is like looking at a travel brochure. It shows you the beautiful destinations, but it can never replace the experience of the journey itself. The real magic of this book is in the stories, in the quiet moments when you read a sentence that feels like it was written just for you. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord, I encourage you to pick up a copy. It's not just a book you read, it's a companion you return to, one that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, your relationships, and your place in the world. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the ideas in the world's most impactful books, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey. Let's keep growing together.